If you're hearing this right now, the exchanges in New York are technically shut down. The activity has ceased on Wall Street. The dealers are at their homes. But on the opposite side of the globe, in Singapore, in Shanghai, and in the shadowy pools of the digital futures marketplace, complete pandemonium is erupting. We are observing something tonight that we haven't witnessed in the silver marketplace for 45 years. We are witnessing a genuine, unfiltered supply disruption. Not a speculative mania, not a paper compression, a physical embargo of one of the most vital strategic commodities on the planet. For the last 3 months, we have been alerting you about a date, a single date that has been looming over this marketplace like a guillotine. January 1st, 2026. Most evaluators told you it was a nothing event. They stated it was just an administrative modification. They stated China revises its export regulations every year and that it wouldn't impact the movement of silver to the West. They told you that the international supply network was robust, that the COMEX had sufficient metal, and that the markups we were witnessing were just temporary fluctuation. Well, tonight those evaluators are rushing to revise their analyses, because approximately 4 hours ago, a file leaked from the Ministry of Commerce in Beijing. It hasn't reached the main sections of Bloomberg or Reuters yet. They are still attempting to confirm the translation. They are still attempting to obtain a statement from a government representative who isn't answering the phone, but we have the file. And the substance of this leak are not just an administrative revision. They are an economic proclamation of warfare. The file details the implementation of the new strategic resource management measures that activate in exactly 11 days. And the headline is alarming for anyone who is short silver. Starting January 1st, China is not just imposing taxes on silver exports. They are not just controlling them. They are implementing a full-scale authorization regime that effectively halts the transportation of silver out of the nation. According to the text, any silver departing the People's Republic of China, whether it is in the configuration of 1,000-ounce bars, grain, or even semi-refined paste, must now be accompanied by a strategic necessity exemption signed by the state administrator. Do you know how many of those exemptions have been issued for Q1 2026? 0. Not one. This indicates that starting on New Year's Day, roughly 15% of the international refining capability for silver is being secured behind a barrier. It is being confined inside the Chinese domestic marketplace. Why does this matter? Why should you concern yourself if metal is stuck in Shanghai? Because the West is depleted, physically depleted. The storage facilities in London are vacant. The eligible stock in New York has been drained to historic minimums. The entire Western financial framework has been continuing on a lifeline of leased metal flowing from the east to the west. We have been borrowing from Peter to pay Paul. And Peter just determined he isn't lending anymore. He is shutting the bank. Tonight, I'm going to walk you through exactly what is occurring in the Asian exchanges right now. I am going to clarify why this export prohibition is the final nail in the coffin for the bullion institutions who are trapped in an enormous short position. And I am going to demonstrate to you why the price you observe on your display, this $67 or $68 price, is an illusion that is about to be demolished. This is the story of the January 1st lockdown, and it starts with the fear we are witnessing on the charts this very second. To comprehend the severity of tonight, you have to comprehend the apparatus of the silver marketplace. For the last 5 years, it has been a game of musical chairs executed on an international scale. Since 2020, the industrial requirement for silver has exploded. We all understand the reasons. Solar panels, electric automobiles, 5G infrastructure, AI data facilities. We have examined the mathematics extensively. The world absorbs more silver than it extracts. That is a reality. It is undeniable. For 5 years, we have operated a shortage. Every year, the operations pull about 800 million ounces out of the earth. And every year, the world utilizes 1 billion ounces or more. So where did the additional metal originate from? How did the price remain at $25, then $30, then $40 for so long? Why didn't it detonate years ago? The answer is the Great West to East movement. Historically, the West maintained the stock. London and New York were the storage facilities of the world. Billions of ounces of legacy silver sat in J.P. Morgan's storage facilities in the LBMA warehouses, remaining from the days when silver was currency. As the shortages accumulated, we emptied those storage facilities. We liquefied down the legacy bars. We transported them to China to be converted into solar paste. We transported them to India to be converted into jewelry. But about 6 months ago, something transformed. The movement reversed. The West exhausted loose metal. The easy silver was gone. The registered stocks on the COMEX dropped to levels that were dangerously minimal. Suddenly, the bullion institutions in the West, the ones who had sold billions of paper ounces to investors, discovered themselves in a trap. They required physical metal to supply against their contracts, but they didn't possess it. So they did what desperate addicts execute. They went to the dealer, they went to China. In October of this year, we received credible intelligence that major U.S. bullion institutions, specifically J.P. Morgan, entered into enormous leasing arrangements with Chinese state institutions like the ICBC. The rumor was that they leased 4,000 metric tons of silver. That is nearly 130 million ounces. They borrowed this metal from China, transported it to London and New York, and utilized it to stabilize the marketplace. They utilized it to pretend that everything was acceptable. They utilized it to maintain the price from reaching $100 before the conclusion of the year. But a lease is a loan, and loans have conditions. And the most significant condition of that lease was the repayment date. The metal has to be returned. And here is where the January 1st lockdown converts a challenging situation into a catastrophic one. If China prohibits the export of silver on January 1st, that door slams closed. But it functions both directions. It signals that China is accumulating. It signals that China considers silver as a strategic commodity that is too precious to allow to depart the nation. If JP Morgan and the other institutions haven't already returned that 130 million ounces, they are in significant trouble. But if they have returned it, it indicates the storage facilities in the West are vacant again, and now they can't borrow anymore. The leak tonight confirms that China recognizes what is approaching. They understand the shortage is genuine. They understand that the US dollar is deteriorating. They understand that in a world of geopolitical conflict, he who maintains the gold and the silver establishes the regulations. By locking down exports, Beijing is effectively stating the era of inexpensive silver for the West is terminated. If you desire our metal, you will have to arrive and construct your manufacturing plants here. You will have to manufacture your solar panels here. We are not going to supply your industry anymore. This is a resource nationalism maneuver of the highest magnitude. It is exactly what occurred with rare earth minerals in 2010. It is exactly what occurred with Russian gas in 2022. And the marketplace understands it. Look at what is occurring in the Asian pre-market trading right now. Usually Sunday nights are silent. The differentials are broad. The volume is minimal. You might witness a 10-cent movement. Tonight, silver gaped up by $1.40 at the opening. We concluded Friday around $66.50. We opened tonight in Asia at $67.90. And as I communicate, bids are reaching $68.10. That is a violent movement. That is panic purchasing. Who is purchasing? It's not the retail investor in Ohio. It's not the accumulator in Germany. They are sleeping. The entities purchasing silver aggressively on a Sunday night in Singapore are the industrial consumers. It is the electronics manufacturers in Korea. It is the solar panel producers in Malaysia. It is the refining customers in Japan. They are examining this leaked file, and they are comprehending that their supply network just got severed by 15%. They are comprehending that come January 1st, they might not be able to obtain delivery. So, they are front-running the prohibition. They are attempting to secure every ounce of physical metal they can discover before the opportunity closes. They don't concern themselves about the price. At $68, silver is still inexpensive if the alternative is zero silver. If your manufacturing plant shuts down because you don't possess paste, you forfeit millions of dollars a day. Paying a few dollars more per ounce is a rounding error. This is the transformation we have been anticipating. The transformation from a speculative marketplace to a scarcity marketplace. In a speculative marketplace, price matters. If the price becomes too elevated, purchasers withdraw. In a scarcity marketplace, price is meaningless. Purchasers purchase because they must, and the leak of the January 1st lockdown is the indication that scarcity is here. But there is another dimension to this story, a dimension that involves the institutions themselves. On Friday, we witnessed the CFTC Bank Participation Report. We examined it in detail. The U.S. institutions flipped net long. They ceased shorting. They reversed positions. Why did they execute that? Did they understand this leak was approaching? Of course they did. JP Morgan has branches in Shanghai. They have profound connections with the Chinese regulators. They understood this export prohibition was arriving down the pipeline. They understood that the January 1st lockdown was genuine. That is why they invested October, November, and December eliminating their shorts. That is why they ceased crushing the price. They understood that once this information reached the public, nothing would be able to halt the explosion. They positioned themselves to be on the correct side of the position. They acquired long positions because they understood the supply disruption was guaranteed. But in executing so, they left someone else maintaining the burden. The report demonstrated that while U.S. institutions went long, non-U.S. institutions, foreign institutions increased their short position to over 200 million ounces. These foreign institutions are now walking into a buzzsaw. Tomorrow morning, when the sun ascends in London, those foreign institutions are going to awaken to a catastrophe. They are short 200 million ounces. The price is gaping upward. The supply from China is being severed off, and their biggest allies, the Americans, have deserted them. What occurs when an institution is trapped in a short compression of this magnitude? They panic. They have two alternatives. They can intensify and attempt to short more, anticipating to shatter the price. But how can you short a marketplace that is driven by physical shortage? You can manufacture paper contracts, but you can't manufacture silver bars. And the industrial purchasers don't desire paper contracts. They desire bars. Or they can eliminate, they can repurchase their shorts. If they attempt to repurchase 200 million ounces in a marketplace where China has secured the door, where do they acquire the metal? They have to bid it upward. They have to offer $70, then $75, then $80. They have to bid until someone is willing to liquidate. But who is liquidating? Are you liquidating? I doubt it. You understand what's occurring. Is Samsung liquidating? No. They just purchased a mine to acquire more. Is China liquidating? No. They just prohibited exports. There are no liquidators. This is the formula for a super spike, a vertical movement in price that defies all technical evaluation. We are witnessing the early tremors of it tonight. But the genuine earthquake commences when the Western exchanges fully absorb this information. The media will attempt to manipulate this. Tomorrow, you will witness headlines on CNBC stating silver rallies on China rumors. They will label it geopolitical conflicts. They will attempt to minimize it. They will bring on specialists who state that the prohibition isn't absolute, that there are exceptions. Do not listen to them. Examine the file. The language is clear. Strategic necessity exemption. That is bureaucratic code for no. China does not desire its silver to depart. They require it for their own solar dominance. They manufacture 80% of the world's panels. They understand that silver is the bottleneck. Why would they export the bottleneck to their competitors? It establishes zero strategic logic. So, the prohibition is genuine, the trap is configured, and the 15% of international supply that usually flows from east to west is about to vanish. Let's execute some mathematics on that 15%. International mine output is about 840 million ounces. 15% of that is roughly 126 million ounces. That is the magnitude of the void being punched in the marketplace. 126 million ounces is more than the entire annual absorption of the United States Mint for silver eagles. It is more than the entire annual absorption of the international photography industry. It is enormous, and it is vanishing overnight. The marketplace was already in a shortage of 200 million ounces. Now you add another 126 million ounces of confined supply that can't reach the West. The effective shortage for the Western exchanges is now over 300 million ounces. There is no mathematical method for the price to remain at $67 with a shortage that large. The clearing price, the price at which requirement is destroyed enough to balance the marketplace, is much, much elevated. Is it $100? Is it $150? We are going to discover. But tonight, the most significant takeaway is this: the regulations of the game have transformed. For decades, the silver marketplace was defined by liquidity. You could always acquire metal. You could always lease it, borrow it, or purchase it. The price might fluctuate, but the availability was never in question. Starting January 1st, availability is the only question. The liquidity is evaporating. The world is fragmenting into separated blocks. The Chinese block possesses silver. The Western bloc requires silver, and the bridge between them is burning down. If you maintain physical silver in your possession, you are maintaining a ticket to the lifeboat. If you are maintaining paper silver or unallocated pool accounts or ETFs that claim to possess metal in sub-custodian storage facilities in London, you require to be very, very concerned. Because when the export prohibition impacts and the institutions scramble for physical, they are going to implement force majeure on those paper contracts. They are going to resolve you in currency. They will provide you your $67 back and state, sorry, we can't supply. Meanwhile, the genuine metal will be trading at $100 on the black marketplace. This is the divergence. the division between the fabricated price and the genuine price. And it is commencing tonight. To comprehend why the silver marketplace is fracturing tonight, you have to comprehend that this isn't an accident. This isn't a random policy modification. What we are observing is the final phase of a strategy that was composed 10 years ago. In 2015, the Chinese Communist Party released a strategic roadmap called Made in China 2025. The objective was simple. China would no longer be the world's inexpensive manufacturing plant. It would become the dominant superpower in high-tech manufacturing. They identified 10 key sectors: robotics, aerospace, biotech, and most significantly, new energy. For a decade, the West laughed. We thought they were just constructing inexpensive plastic toys, but while we were laughing, they were controlling the marketplace on every single raw material required to construct the future. They executed it with cobalt in the Congo, they executed it with lithium in South America, and now in the final days of 2025, they are executing it with silver. This January 1st lockdown is not about currency. China possesses plenty of currency. This is about industrial continuation. Let me clarify the technology that is driving this prohibition, because the mainstream media is completely disregarding it. For the last 5 years, the solar industry operated on a technology called PERC. It was efficient enough, and it utilized a moderate quantity of silver paste. The West could manage the requirement. But in 2024, the Chinese solar giants Longi, Jinko Solar, Trina established an enormous synchronized transformation. They switched their manufacturing lines to a new technology called N-type TOPCon. Why? Because N-type cells are roughly 5% more efficient. That sounds minimal, but in the energy world, 5% is the distinction between profit and bankruptcy. But there is a catastrophic flaw in N-type technology. It is a silver vampire. An N-type solar cell absorbs 30% to 50% more silver than the old PERC cells. It requires silver paste on both surfaces of the wafer, not just the front. When China switched their manufacturing plants to N-type, they effectively increased their national silver absorption by 50 million ounces a year overnight. They examined their internal stockpiles, they examined the operations, and they executed the mathematics. They comprehended that if they continued to export silver to the West to assist America and Europe construct their solar panels, China would exhaust metal for its own manufacturing plants. So the strategic necessity exemption we witnessed in the leak tonight isn't just bureaucracy. It is a rationing apparatus. Beijing is stating, "We possess enough silver for our N-type revolution. We do not possess enough silver for yours." This is exactly what they executed with rare earths in 2010. Do you remember that crisis? China controlled 97% of the rare earth marketplace. In a dispute with Japan, they quietly halted exports. The price of dysprosium and neodymium went vertical. Japanese high-tech industry almost collapsed in weeks. The West screamed. We filed lawsuits at the WTO. We won the lawsuits 5 years later. By then, it didn't matter. The damage was executed. The supply networks had already relocated to China. They are operating the same playbook with silver. The leak confirms that starting January 1st, 2026, Chinese smelters are prohibited from exporting silver bars unless they can demonstrate the metal is surplus to domestic strategic requirements. Surplus? There is no surplus. They're operating a shortage. This indicates the export figure goes to zero. Now, consider about the Western institutions. Consider about JP Morgan. Consider about the London Bullion Market Association, LBMA. They have constructed a financial framework that relies on the free movement of metal. They lease silver from China in the morning, liquidate it in London in the afternoon, and repurchase it back in New York at night. It is a carousel. On January 1st, the music halts. The carousel fractures. If JP Morgan owes ICBC 130 million ounces and they can't transport it back because of capital controls, or if they were planning to lease more to eliminate their shorts, they are deceased in the water. This clarifies why the foreign institutions, the non-US institutions from the CFTC report, are panicking. They are the ones who rely on this international movement. They don't possess their own operations. They don't possess their own storage facilities. They are intermediaries. And in a resource warfare, the intermediary is the first casualty. The Western failure to anticipate this maneuver is staggering. We witnessed the export control law passed in 2020. We witnessed them add gallium and germanium to the list in 2023. We witnessed them add graphite in 2024. Silver was always the next logical step. It is the most conductive metal on Earth. You cannot construct a missile, satellite, a server, or a solar panel without it. The West treated silver like a legacy monetary metal, a pet rock. China treated silver like energy. We have examined the leak. We have examined the history. Now, we need to discuss the future, specifically the next 24 hours. Because when the sun ascends over London tomorrow morning and the dealers at the LBMA walk onto their floor, they are going to be walking into a crime scene. The leak of the Chinese export prohibition has effectively converted every single short contract in existence into a toxic commodity. Let's execute out the scenario. At 3 a.m. New York time, the London marketplace opens. This is the physical fix. This is where the big industrial consumers, the Teslas, the Samsungs, the Glencores, purchase their actual metal. Usually, this is a polite, orderly process. Tomorrow, it will be a riot because of the Sunday night gap we are witnessing in Asia right now, with silver trading near 68. The London marketplace is going to open in a state of immediate stress. The foreign institutions we discussed, the ones maintaining that 200 million ounce short position, are going to receive a margin call notification before they even complete their coffee. Their risk controllers are going to examine at the display. They are going to witness the Chinese export prohibition. They are going to witness the U.S. institutions sitting on long positions, and they're going to scream one word, eliminate. But here is the mechanics of a compression that most people don't comprehend. To eliminate a short position of that magnitude, you cannot just click purchase. If you purchase 5 million ounces at marketplace price, you push the price upward by $2. If you purchase 10 million ounces, you push it upward by $5. These institutions require to purchase 200 million ounces. As soon as the first institution blinks, as soon as Deutsche Bank or whoever it is places that first enormous purchase order, the price is going to telescope upwards. It will go from $68 to $69 in seconds. And that brings us to the most hazardous figure on the chart, 70. $70 is not just a round figure. It is the psychological fracture point. For 5 years, $30 was the ceiling. Then $50 was the ceiling. Now $70 is the final line in the sand. Above $70, there's no technical resistance. There's no historical chart information. There are no bag holders from 1,980 seeking to liquidate. Everyone who possesses silver above $70 is in profit. When an asset enters all-time highs with no resistance, it enters a state called price discovery mode. In price discovery mode, the algorithms that operate the modern financial world cease examining history. They switch to momentum mode,